Moving on, we are at Dr. Swift's update.
Very good. Thank you, Madam President and trustees and members of the community who are joining us this evening. Trustees, you have a copy of the update attached. Just a few topics this evening. Very much appreciate the celebrations of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day across the Ann Arbor Public Schools. Students and staff have engaged in lessons and activities that honored the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his nonviolent approaches to ensuring equality and justice for all. Our students have been celebrating using virtual assemblies, guest speakers, interactive read-alouds, virtual tours of National Civil Rights Museum, and interdisciplinary lessons focused on Dr. King's speeches. Was very impressed with our high school students who, for the second year in a row, trustees, participated in a virtual symposium presentation that was district-wide for all high schoolers, celebrating the day. And across all of our high schools, student and staff participated as speakers and participants, and much appreciation to Representative Yusuf Rabi, who was the keynote speaker on Friday morning. Our equity work in the district continues. Our Ann Arbor Public Schools leadership team, that's about 100, a little over 100 school teams and leaders in the district, participated last Tuesday in the ongoing Leading for Equity professional series with Dr. Emden. And he is currently focusing with us on 28 strategies and concrete moves we can make to become a more equitable school learning community. We're also excited and looking forward next week to the next session of our Equity Learning Together as Dr. Celie Ruiz returns to us. As you all know, she has been with us, national leader in the equity work, has been with us over the course of this year. She will be back for her fourth session, Archaeology of the Self, and it's a culturally responsive teaching and learning development. This is an all staff development. It will occur next Wednesday from 2 to 4 p.m. So very excited to move forward with that next session. This week in the Ann Arbor Public Schools, we are coming to the close of semester 1 for this 21-22 school year. Our students at middle school are taking exams and submitting their work to wrap up the semester, and they'll begin the new semester on Monday, January 24th. So reach out to your child's teacher should you have any questions, or if you'd like to connect with them regarding the wrap up of the grades. High school student teams at Community, Huron, and Pioneer are participating in final exams this week, and they're working with staff on plans for makeup exams. Our teams, I'm very grateful, they're spending extra effort this year to ensure that all students are supported to wrap up their semester. And we understand that we probably will see a higher than the typical number of students needing to take makeup exams. So they are planning to use the better part of next week to provide plenty of time and opportunity for our students to feel supported in wrapping up the traditional semester. Parents can look for that information coming from the school principal or reach out at any time, of course. Several of our commenters spoke to our schools and our opening and the transition to virtual, and I wanted to address an update this evening in the superintendent's update. Our current reality is that cases remain high, both among Ann Arbor Public Schools staff and students, as well as in our Ann Arbor community. As a result of this current surge, we do continue to experience staff shortages. Trustees, I know you're aware, we've been working for most of a year now to hire additional staff additional guest teachers. We do understand that there are a number of steps involved in becoming a guest teacher, a guest employee in the district. We do hear that concern, and yet entrusting a classroom to an individual is a process that requires a number of steps, and that is necessary. Just so that folks understand, we've been mobilizing our staff, covering classrooms, our teachers cover, members of my team are out, and yet, and that's how we navigated all of our weeks through the fall. What's different in January is the sheer number of absences. We are averaging, trustees, 20, 25, 30% of teams short-staffed on most every day. We are updating this morning and evening and watching the cases every hour in between. Moving a classroom or a grade to virtual remote learning is never our first choice, but it is necessary when we're not able to provide proper infrastructure and supervision in classrooms and schools. The level of absences at this time has indicated full schools. When we made the decision for King last week, there were many grade levels impacted by illness and absence in that school. It wasn't a situation where we could just close one classroom or one grade. We do keep our schools open when classrooms are impacted, and trustees currently have an outbreak occurring in one classroom, and yet the elementary school remains open. So we are navigating this as well as we possibly can. Particularly, we are seeing transportation, food and nutrition, custodial, and our ITD team have been especially impacted over these 2 weeks since returning from winter break. We're taking a number of steps every day with the priority of holding in-person, in-school learning. We're watching this around the clock. We understand that in-school learning is critical, and I appreciate all of our understanding and recognition that our students need and staff need to be together when we can safely do so. We do understand the impact to our families and to our community. Here are the steps that we take as we're mobilizing every tool we've got to meet the challenges of this January time. And trustees, we watch the experts and try to understand, and no one has been able to predict the future perfectly through this pandemic, but we do expect probably 2 to 4 to 6 weeks more of this ahead of us. And yet we hope that timeline is shorter. But here are the steps we're taking during this January surge. Day-by-day monitoring of our COVID data that is connected to the related staffing and student impact. It is not just that staff members are positive for COVID. That is occurring. But what doesn't show on the dashboard is the number of staff who may have a child or other immediate family member at home that is positive or that is ill and needs their care. We are monitoring attendance data around the clock. We're confirming coverage, and we're mobilizing staff across schools to ensure that we're covering as many classrooms as possible. We have implemented a winter increase. Trustees, you recall we did that back in November around Thanksgiving in daily rates for guest teachers and guest employees across the district. And we will keep that winter stipend in place through March. And that has helped us. We are seeing, we have about 300 plus active subs in a larger pool of about 700 that are not all very active, but about 300 plus are regularly active with us. We continue to mobilize members of my team and of the central leadership team. Folks are filling in every place that they can to support and to ensure coverage across our schools for safe in-school operations. We continue to deliver our professional learning virtually, and I really appreciate our teachers and our staff accessing virtual remote learning sessions to reduce staff exposure on those times when we're dedicated to professional learning. And we continue to schedule our essential meetings as much as possible outside of school hours so that we can dedicate our school day as much as possible to the frontline school teams. When needed, due to our inability to staff sufficiently for safe in-school supervision and operations, we will transition a classroom, a school, as needed to remote virtual learning. Most of our schools, this week we have 3 campuses who are now in virtual remote learning and 27 campuses who are learning in their normal traditional in-school format. Operations is an area, trustees, that I speak with you all about regularly because it is a big concern. Our hourly employees are having impact not only for themselves, but for their families. And we are concerned about those absences that continue to hinder our efforts for full operations. We are operating currently 75 of 97 transportation routes each day, including all of our special education and preschool routes. We continue reassigning personnel as needed to cover as many routes as we can. Unfortunately, this has been a tough week for the transportation team with additional positive COVID cases, family impact, and unfortunately 2 resignations yesterday. So trustees, I'm being very transparent in stating the facts as they currently are this evening. It is possible that we may need to continue to modify operations. We are literally checking the data on that to see how close we can come to staffing all of our transportation routes in a very similar picture with food and nutrition and with custodial. I just want to give a big shout out to a group of parents and students who are on those suspended routes. And I hear stories, inspiring stories of people working together, carpooling, taking time about, and really going that extra, no pun intended, extra mile to get our kids to school. And I said to my team, and I've shared with the trustees, we've never in my 30 plus years had to take a step like this. It is very unnatural. It is not what we want to do. But in our custodial team, folks are working double shifts, coming in on the weekend. We can catch that work up. But when it comes to buses, Trustee Dupree and I were visiting today, when it comes to buses, that work has to occur at a specific time, specific place, and there's not a way to rearrange. So I'm being very clear about the challenges that we face. Folks say, well, why didn't you hire more? We have hired as many as we possibly can. We have increased our hourly wages to be the top pay in the area for school bus drivers and benefits as well. So we will continue to persevere, but I do need to share an update. I get questions often about student attendance, not just staff attendance, but we're always paying close attention to our student attendance. We're really hoping to see some continuity of learning through this January time of Omicron disruption. We understand that moving from in-school to virtual is a challenge. And so I wanted to share with you what we're seeing on student attendance. Trustees, you're aware we saw strong attendance during the first 4 days back from winter break when we were on remote virtual. That was the 5th through the 7th and the 10th, averaging 89 to 91% attendance overall and 86 to 92% attendance across grade levels. And you know, trustees, our students had to be live online in order to be counted present. So that is a real attendance number. As we've returned to in-school learning for most schools, starting on January 11th, we have hovered a little bit lower, around 87% attendance overall. Two observations inside of that 87% is that school buildings are on virtual, school buildings that are on a virtual status generally achieve a higher attendance rate. Just a casual observation, it'll run 5 or 6% higher when they're in virtual that as opposed to being in face-to-face. A second observation about that attendance data is that we do see an increase in the attendance rate at the point when a transition to virtual occurs. So it does show that that attendance does pop up when we make that transition over. Those two observations have nothing to do with the decision process. I'm just sharing with you the data as we've observed it. When we check these attendance rates for January of 2022, we hear from districts across the country that attendance rates overall in schools are lower right now. So we took this January data and analyzed it alongside January 2019 and January 2020 in the before times, as I call them. And this is my first time to get to call him this publicly, but Dr. Dan Berger, and congratulations, recently defended his dissertation and is now Dr. Dan Berger. So congrats, Dan, if you're out there. He took a look today at 3 dates: the Tuesday following New Year's Day, the Wednesday of the following week, following New Year's Day, and the Tuesday after Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Just took a look at those 3 dates, try to see where we are in January of 2022 on student attendance. In all cases, the number of absence codes, so students out ill, students out on bereavement, for whatever reason, were very similar to the number of daily codes that we have experienced during these previous 2 weeks. So student attendance so far during this January 2022 is very similar to January of 2019 and January of 2020, both pre-COVID numbers. I'm just observing that given all we're currently experiencing with COVID and Omicron January challenges just now, I'm very proud that student attendance in the Ann Arbor Public Schools continues to be strong through this January. That is a real achievement, and I want to thank our students, our parents, our staff, and everyone who's contributing to make school a priority right now. When students do need to miss classes, and I hear from parents because families are impacted by cases right now, I just wanted to remind folks that the quarantine learning program is available, and any student may access that during a short-term absence. When we send this out as a superintendent's update, I will link in this website so that folks can go there and get the links at any time when they might want to check in to grade level instruction. We're seeing about 50 to 75 students in the QLP each day. We're not allowed per state attendance audit requirements to consider attendance in the QLP as present for school attendance records. But the most important priority for our students and for our community is that continuing care and connection and continuity of learning. That is the benefit of the QLP program. I just want to give a shout out to that team of teachers. We hired them back in the fall. And if you can imagine, trustees, an assignment where you show up virtually every day to a set of children who are just with you for the day. And these folks are doing an incredible job. They begin with the elementary classes begin with an opening meeting, a morning meeting, which the children are very accustomed to in their classrooms at school. And then they proceed after that block of learning time, they proceed to assist the students with the Schoology assignment that are for their own classroom. So the positive news, in addition to our QLP, is that we have completed 10 vaccination events, approximately 1,500 student vaccines administered, and about 200 boosters for staff members. I just want to give a shout out to Ms. Jenna Bacalor, Liz Margolis, and the entire team. We have community assistants, we have nursing team, we have rec and ed staff. Trustees, if you ever buy one of those events, it's an all hands on deck. Everybody knows their job and gets to it. And they're able to get folks through the vaccination process really very quickly. My favorite part is the after room where one of the team members coordinates a dance event. So while they're waiting, there is dancing that occurs and coloring, and they really make it a nice time for kids. We are experiencing higher case numbers as we are seeing in the community. We're experiencing that in the district, and I just want to be clear about that. One of the big things that folks have been asking us about is the updated school guidance. And so Ms. Jenna Bacalor will be joining us, trustees, because we knew folks might have questions or want to check on some of the guidance. It happened over winter break that the CDC updated guidance, and then we were waiting, of course, for MDHHS and Washtenaw County Health Department to update their school guidance, not just guidance for the public, but for schools. And so now we have transitioned in this new year to update our school protocols in keeping with the guidance from Washtenaw County Health Department. The school nurses have been implementing step by step with students and staff to see how the new structures and protocols work and to collect data from the implementation of those guidelines. So as before, we will continue to use a layered approach. And trustees, we've talked a lot about the three overarching practices: our universal masking. Many of our staff and students are even upgrading their masks now. That is a part of what we're doing. We do have masks available in every school. Secondly, vaccination and boosters. We now can vaccinate from 5 to 18-year-olds. I'm very delighted that we saw many 12 to 15-year-olds at our recent clinic getting their boosters. So that number is increasing also. I do want to emphasize that the protocols are a general guideline. The nurse is the public health person who actually analyzes with the parent, with the teacher, with the school, and each case is based on those unique factors. So the district response may be adapted as necessary, and it is important for me to always point out that health guidance and related implementation protocols are substantial, and they have changed over the course of months, and they probably will continue to change. We are monitoring data so we can determine how effective our current protocols are, and we will adjust as needed. So Ms. Bacalor is going to drop right in to be with us, and she's going to really review a summary. Trustees, you also have the detailed guidance. You have 2 documents, so either one of those. Good evening, Ms. Beckler.
Good evening. It's great to see you. Good evening, trustees and Dr. Swift. I'm happy to talk a little bit more in depth about the new protocols, which, as Dr. Swift mentioned, we've already been implementing, kind of doing a launch without making a big deal out of it, to really kind of make sure and refine our approach. The protocol changes really support the district's goal of keeping students in school because they provide more options for returning to school sooner from isolation. They also decrease the number of students who would have been put into quarantine previously. So it's a big shift from identifying and quarantining close contacts based on any school exposure to narrowing that down to high risk exposures. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, what it means in practice. So really there are four things going on in practice. First, vaccination status continues to matter for all staff and for students ages 5 to 18. Unvaccinated or partially vaccinated students and staff, as you know, are more likely to become sick, but also they're much more likely to be put in quarantine based on exposure to a case at school or at home as well. So as Dr. Swift mentioned, we have really put a strong focus on making vaccination available. I think we've probably had more vaccination clinics than most school districts in Michigan, and we have two more coming up the next 2 Tuesdays at Pioneer, and there are still appointments available. So the second big area is that for students and staff who test positive, there's a possible reduction in isolation days. And the option is for a 5-day isolation with return on day 6 if certain criteria are met, such as, significant improvement in symptoms, or maybe the symptoms are already gone, agreement to wear a high filtration mask for days 6 through 10 at school, and continued symptom monitoring. A negative rapid antigen test is still strongly recommended at day 5. So third, we are already seeing, and we're going to see this more, a significant reduction in the number of students who are placed in quarantine. So this is already happening. With contact tracing limited to these high-risk situations, we anticipate there will be way fewer students put into quarantine. In certain situations, and as AAPS resources allow, we will continue to do the Test to Stay program that we've been doing since probably mid-November. We started doing it more in earnest. And in fact, this week we've already done Test to Stay at 3 different buildings. And I do want to point out one area of the guidance where we are being more strict in our interpretation of one particular school setting. So the Washtenaw County Health Department's new guidance considers meal times to be low risk. And we all know during meals and classroom snack times, which happens at the elementary level, students are unmasked for short periods of time. So in an abundance of caution during this Omicron surge, for this time, we will be continuing to contact trace student cases that involve meals and snack times. So we have some leeway. It doesn't automatically mean there's going to be quarantines as a result. And we don't anticipate doing this extra step for long, but we know that Omicron is more contagious, and when masks are off, that is to us a higher risk situation. And again, for students who are vaccinated and asymptomatic, it's not going to make any difference. They're going to stay in school anyways, and not have to quarantine. So the fourth area of change is the case notification and response process. So we're still, as far as notification, which is our letters that go out, our emails that go out informing school communities about cases that will still continue to happen. We're going to try to streamline by batching. So instead of sending a letter for every single case, we'll batch on a given day. And there will be one letter that says there have been, 4 cases that day. We started doing this a little bit in the fall, but we're really focusing on doing that to a greater extent. So that as you know from what I've just said, the case response will look different. Our nurses and the whole COVID response team would spend a lot of time calling parents every day and evening, contact tracing, calling parents to put students in quarantine. We anticipate doing much, much less of that, which is a relief, frankly. So as Dr. Swift mentioned, our COVID response team with our school nurses has already started implementing these procedures. We've had a lot of very close consultation with the Washtenaw County Health Department. So for parents and staff who've tested positive over the past week, you already know that there this, especially the isolation difference. And with a decrease in time spent on case investigation and contact tracing, we will be able to focus our efforts, the nurses and the COVID response team, on supporting healthy and safe practices in schools, including patient education for students and staff who test positive, because the new guidance is nuanced, is a little complicated, and every situation is unique, so that patient education is really important. And also offering tests to stay if staffing allows and additional school testing supplies are received. We are very low on our school testing supplies. We've been, promised more shipments, and they have not arrived yet. And I know there's a multi-layered shortage situation. So we are hopeful that we will get more, but right now we are pretty low in our supply. So let's talk about what parents can do. And parents have been just amazing partners with the school district in preventing school transmission. So it's really mostly the same kind of things we're asking of parents. First, to monitor your child, your student, for COVID symptoms every single day. We have updated the daily screener based on the new guidance. It has a handy flow chart that's right from the health department about what to do based on symptoms and exposure. If your child has symptoms, please keep them home until they can get tested. Again, there's a nice handy flow chart for that. And we are continuing the practice. If a student becomes ill during the day, we will have them go to the health support room. We will call the parent for a pickup. If anyone in the household tests positive for COVID, we need you to keep your student home and follow the guidelines that are in our new guidance. That home exposure to COVID is just more likely for people to get it from each other in the home, especially with Omicron. We have seen this happen. It doesn't happen every time, but we just need to be really cautious when there are home cases. We also really urge parents, if they haven't already, to get your 5 to 18-year-old student vaccinated and boosted. As I mentioned, unvaccinated students will be required to quarantine in some COVID exposure situations. Those high-risk situations include things like extracurriculars like basketball, hockey, wrestling. Anytime there are masks off, if there is an outbreak in a building, and other carpooling, other situations too. So being vaccinated helps you stay in school. Finally, I just want to mention to parents, because we haven't really said this directly before, is be ready to provide consent for your student to be tested at school, either if they have symptoms and the nurse is there and has a test and is able to test them, or if we're able to do a test to stay. the way that the program works is that we very quickly are reaching out to parents and asking for their consent using this electronic signature form. And so just being alert that you may receive an email like that would be helpful for us. So I know that the guidance will be, the detailed guidance will be posted tomorrow. And as Dr. Swift mentioned, we are always keeping up to date and making adjustments as needed. And every case is unique. Every student is unique. And we want to work with parents to help them keep their kids in school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beckler. We really appreciate you sharing this information. I know the trustees will have questions, and I know I was able to tune into the Washtenaw County Health Department session last evening, and they referenced some components. I know that we've been closely working with them for a few weeks now as this school version of the new CDC, MDHHS, and Washtenaw County Health Department advisement has come forward. I'm very interested to see how it works out in our environment. And so I know that you're monitoring data every day to see how it is working. And I also want to emphasize one other point we emphasized with our staff last week is there is no expectation that folks should return to work or to school if they're not feeling well. So every individual is unique. That's an obvious statement, but there is no expectation. One of the concerns about the 6th day being the earliest time is not everyone will feel well by the 6th day. So we continue to emphasize with our team, with all the members on the Ann Arbor Public Schools team, folks need to take care of themselves. And I know that as you talk, our nurse team, and you talk to our folks, you are helping them to understand that component, that there's no expectation. It's just that if the case is mild, it has resolved by that 6th day, then that can be considered. Very good. All right, Madam President, thank you for the opportunity to provide the superintendent's update. We will refine it after our discussion this evening, and share it with our community, as is our practice.
Thank you, Dr. Swift and Ms. Beckler. Thank you for all the hard work that you're doing on this and deciphering this hot off the press document. And I know our community is ready to see it.